I'm Melanie Cullen. I work at JDRF, obviously, and I've been at JDRF for 6 years now. I guess my profession or my previous role was a psychologist. I'm a psychologist, and I worked in a diabetes service in Nepean for 10 years in New South Wales. My role at JDRF, I work on the insulin pump program, and I also am the mental health lead. So I get to do, which means I get to do all these sorts of fun things in the Breathe program. So hopefully I've seen some people in the Breathe program as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Fee. I am a diabetes educator and I work mainly with kids as well as I also work with adults. I'm trying to think in which order to tell you things about my life at the moment because it's quite hilarious. I've lived with type 1 diabetes coming up, well, it was on Halloween, my 36th anniversary. I'm not telling you how old I was, but I was quite young when I was diagnosed. And I'm on an insulin pump. We're very excited to have you guys. And look, Christmas is such a special, exciting time. Holidays, it's always amazing, but there's always so much stress that goes with it. If you take diabetes out, throw diabetes in, and we just like everything, we always make things just a little bit more tricky. But this is what tonight's all about, navigating. And the most important thing about Christmas and the holidays is what the true meaning is, and that's the spirit of Christmas. And I want you to all know that you're part of a well-loved community, and we're JDRF are all there for you. Saying that, I'm actually a volunteer, so I don't actually work for JDRF. This is just how I like to give back.
I forgot to mention that I'm also a type 1 mum. So I'm also a mum to a now 19, nearly 20-year-old who's had type 1 since he was 2.
I'm going to throw a question out there just to start with, and then I'll start with some tips. What are you looking forward to the most at Christmas? You can put your hands up, whatever you like. What do you see Christmas as? What do you enjoy?
Hello.
What's your name?
This is Zara.
Hi, Zara.
Hi, Zara.
Are you looking forward to Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favourite part of Christmas?
Spending time with family.
Oh, mate, right on.
Good answer. Well done.
And do you know what? Right off the bat, that we're actually able to say, you know what, having type 1 doesn't affect that at all. You can hang out with your family as much as you want.
We've got some comments. People are saying that they're planning on going on cruises, surf camp. That sounds Bali into the beach. Oh, lots of fun stuff happening, Fee.
Biggest tip for Bali, biggest tip, nothing to do with diabetes at all, but it will help, is to put a cup over the tap. So you're not tempted to brush your teeth with the water, making sure you don't ask for ice in your water, and making sure salad, if you're having salad, you only have that in like one of the really classy restaurants that don't use water or ice, but they tend to say don't even eat the salad as well. Now that's just for everybody that goes to Bali, but especially if you have type 1, you really don't want to get Bali belly. So the biggest tip that I find that people, when we break down if someone's ever had Bali belly, is actually the teeth brushing is what they get done. So put a cup over the thing. And the other thing is tell the kids not to drink in the shower. 2 top tips.
Yes. So, all right. So we've got some questions, Fee.
Oh, I was going to say maybe we could start with Victoria's because I think this is one that a lot of people would find familiar. Swimming at the beach has been tricky with the CGM. Are there any tips for a day in the water and protecting it?
Okay. So what part of CGM is tricky? Is it actually that when you're more than 6 meters away that you can't see it? Can you give me a little bit more clarity with that?
Where's Victoria?
So some people actually get those really cool waterproof pouches, and they put their phones into the waterproof pouch. And the parents actually are the ones that carry that with them, and they're near the kids, so they actually continually have CGM readings. If it's about that the CGM comes off or sand, Rockadex, and I think it is, I'm trying to think of the other one, Gluco. Nah, I'll have to find it. Who sell tapes and things. They also have some great ones. And the other really cool one that I actually use at water parks is just plain old Opsite. So, or Tegaderm, Opsite Tegaderm. Not fancy, not pretty. You can glam it up yourself, but it is waterproof and it works an absolute treat.
She's saying it's more about the instructions not to be submerged for more than 30 minutes, but it's hard to keep kids out of the water. Yeah, completely.
Sure. So with that, oh, Mel, good on you. Oh, no, Lisa's sending some stuff through. Thank you. With that, when they say not to be submerged for more than 30 minutes, generally, depending on what device you have, it's like a meter. So not many kids are going to be submerged for 1 meter unless they're scuba diving or not even snorkeling at that. But where you need to be for the CGM to work, it's not waterproof. It doesn't. CGM doesn't CGM is Bluetooth. Bluetooth doesn't work underwater. So it's when you come up that data will go to the device. Does that make sense?
So it's not that it damages, it's just that you don't get the readings if
That's
it's
exactly
the
right.
Bluetooth connection that's the issue rather than the
Yeah.
CGM. Victoria,
And
we
you don't need them out very long. You know, they can just be bobbing away in the water and you're nearby. And you'll get that you'll get that data. It's just if you're continuously under the water, you won't.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. It was the I didn't realize about the 1 meter thing. So she's kind of I've been a bit worried. The reading kind of goes a bit haywire, but that is probably because she's probably further than 6 meters away from the phone rather than being in the water too long. So
Just have a look up whichever CGM device you have. And that would, sorry?
the Libre,
The
freestyle
Libre. I can Google away when Mel's talking in a minute and find you the depth for that. But it's usually got to do with depth. But the other thing is really important to remember is that Bluetooth doesn't work underwater, and all of these CGMs are underwater, are Bluetooth.
Okay, thank you.
But
Yeah,
what is
so-
really cool is that data comes back at the end, and therefore you can look and reflect on it and things. I mean, it's still it's going back, you know, into the age of the dinosaur. We're nearly in that era where kids are going to go, I've never done a finger prick before, but finger pricks still have a place. And I'm sure all your teams have said that as well. And at the beach, it's quite handy to have a finger pricker with you.
I mean, people often worry about taking their pumps off or how long people often would speak about how long they can go in the beach for the day. You know, people want to be able to swim all day, but they're worried about having their pumps off for too long.
Someone, the person who's going to the surf camp said
Yep.
wondering how to deal with sand in infusion sets and timing of pumps and things like that.
Sure. So look, for that one in particular, I would definitely be reaching out to your diabetes team and getting an actual surf camp plan, because that will involve a lot of different things depending on how long the kids are in the water. So I know for ourselves, I last year did a surf camp that the kids were in the water 6 out of the 8 hours for the day. So we came up with an off pump plan as well. So that's definitely one that I'd be reaching out to your team and getting a surf camp plan. But let's talk about in general, and you'll be able to use some of these tips as well. So one of my tips, and when I was naughty before and said sunscreen, that could be anywhere in Australia. We have the highest UV rates in the world, in Australia. And I am a really big one banging on with our type 1 diabetes that all kids should be coming out of the water, and adults, and putting sunscreen on really regularly, even if it's not a 30-degree day. And this is where I tend to actually work with diabetes, because if everybody is making sure they're covered up, and the other thing is for CGM to be working really well, you need to be hydrated. And we know when we're in the water, you can become dehydrated much more quickly. So I actually bring it's a family thing. So every 30 to 40 minutes out of the water, everybody drink. You know what? Oh, we'll just check the blood sugar while it's there. The CGM's working, and everybody eat some food. And then the child that has type 1 as well, that's okay, because everybody else is eating as well, and that's what keeps their glucose up. So with these holidays, with Christmas, with the beach, I actually see it, and it's no different when I'm talking to kids with alcohol. I don't always make it about alcohol and type 1 diabetes. I actually make it about what is safe for everybody with alcohol, because when we actually manage alcohol and diabetes with everyone, basically the same for diabetes as well, because a lot of people that don't have it don't do those basic safety things. So that would be my biggest #1 tip. Get the whole family out regularly to slip, slop, slap. Get the whole family to come in, have some water. And that's particularly important with CGM. And I can't stress that enough. All the data's coming out now. Did you realize that, Mel? All the data's coming out. hydration is so important.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And look, I live near the beach, and I must admit I did try it out last summer, and I found that when I did come in and drink more water, I had much reliable, not only was the CGM more reliable, it seemed to connect a lot quicker as well. Now, pumps. Oh my gosh, remember these pumps are 8 to 10 grand. So when we're talking about pumps, I don't worry too much about sand. I worry about ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So that's where you need to talk to your team about, you know, are you going to be on the pump and come in, come off? Is there going to be somebody that is going to be on the beach that is looking after the pumps? Is there going to be like an esky where you can just not too cold or icy or anything like that, but where you can keep it insulated? Where I'm from, we often over summer can have the 40-degree days. So if I had my pump just on my beach bag, it's likely to get very, very hot. We're very lucky down here. Our lifeguards, is there any lifeguards online? Our lifeguards have actually been known to look after pumps as well. So if you say to them, would you
That's a good
mind,
tip.
they put them away. If you're going to any of the theme parks up on the Gold Coast or around the world, especially like Disneyland, Disney World, or the water parks, they actually have a place where you can leave your pump and come back, and they have it all labeled. It's the most incredible system. And the really cool bit was, I hope nobody from Disney is online, but what you can do is leave your pump, and if you have it in a big enough bag with the other diabetes supplies, you can put a couple of cans of diet soft drink in there, and so it stays really cold. So,
Free refrigeration, yeah.
so that's a really another top tip is with your pump as well. As far as infusion sets and getting sand in the lines, majority of infusion sets, and the reason why I say majority is that sometimes they're no longer coming with it, but I would say 99% are, is like a little shower cap in the pack, and that you can just clip over, and that actually keeps sand and things out of that port. Remember, it's not actually a port out of the infusion set. Remember though that it's not a two-way street. So if you did get water or things like that in it, it's not going to go into the body. But sand getting around infusion sets, totally hear you. I definitely put that little safety cap on it that comes with each of your infusion sets.
And the 2 hours, the general rule is you can be off your pump for 2 hours. I mean, if we're coming out and doing sunscreen more regularly, but the general rule is around 2 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, Mel, that's a really good question. And I would definitely talk to your team about it. I'm a big one to actually say to my families, and I say it to me as well. Okay, so when I talk to you tonight, I come with part diabetes educator, part fee, join them together, and this is what you get. So what I tend to say is I tell myself I'm coming out in an hour and a half, and then I'm guaranteed to be back on my pump at 2 hours. I'm not getting increased risk of ketones or anything like that. I have known of people that have said they're coming out at 2 hours, get caught in a rip, and they're like 2.5, 3 hours by the time they come back in. So I think if you always say an hour and a half, you're going to be ready to be back on by that 2 hours. But
we have just a quick question here about Omnipod's fee and the heat. Well, we're talking about pumps and heat and insulin. Does the heat, if you're wearing it on your arm, does the heat affect the insulin in the pod?
That is a very, very good question. Omnipod, and this would be something to talk to your team about as well. Omnipod state no, it's all fine, that it doesn't have that effect. If you're in direct 40-degree sunlight, and this doesn't matter what device or what diabetes thing you're using, I say to people, if your glucose levels are above whatever your team's target range is, so if they're constantly above 11 or they're constantly above 15, whatever that is for your team, or constantly above 8, I know some teams are like them not to be above 8. If you're like 4 hours and you can't get it down despite increased insulin, change it out. When in doubt, change it out. And I don't think that matters whatever device you're on, that if you can't get your glucose levels down, then you need to change it out. And a really good question, don't know how many Victorians there are here, and look, Queenslanders, you have lots of them, Sydney-siders, WA, everybody has them, South Australia in particular as well, is, you know, those 5-day absolute fire, heat, what do you call it?
Heat wave. Yeah.
Heat wave, thank you, scorches.
Yeah.
So I remember a number of years ago now, you know, under 5, but something like that pre-pandemic, that I came back after public holidays, and I had numerous numerous phone calls about glucose levels being really high. I got everybody to change their insulin, and out of those numerous, there was 8 that were running, you know, very high. I got everyone to change their insulin, and then got them to all ring me back in 2 hours' time. It was a very busy day, and all but one, nothing was done, and one person had one thing changed. It was all got to do with their insulin had been affected. And if we remember, insulin's a protein, so it denurtures. So extreme heat, I have a few more tips. Frio bags, fantastic. They're a little pricey, but they're fantastic, last a long time. They have in them, they have gels that you dip in water, and they actually expand and keep insulin cold for 36 hours. But my personal favorite, and I meant to pull it out tonight and I didn't, does everybody know those little case? I should just get they're yogurt pouches. So you actually put your yogurt into. Does everyone know those? You put them in the freezer. No?
Yep.
Yep. They are absolutely brilliant for the beach. Absolutely brilliant for keeping insulin cool as well. And last year when I went to the US, I actually put some insulin in just to see how long it would stay compared to the Frio. And it lasted the 15 hours. It was quite incredible. And the insulin stayed really cool. So they're great as well. So if you are traveling, if you're doing a lot in the car, please make sure that you do keep the biggest problem we have in the summer is that insulin does tend to, can get affected by the heat. Once again, talk to your team. But those basic tips, you know, never leave insulin in a handbag in the car, never leave insulin in the car, and don't just leave it sunbaking on the beach as well, because protein, insulin is a protein and will denurture.
I'm going to say one more thing about swimming and things like that. It's always take spare supplies with you. The last thing you want is things to fall off and you have to go home early. You don't want your set falling off and things falling off early and it ruining your whole day. The one thing we want is diabetes not to get in the way. So if we have spares, then it won't get in the way, and we'll just be able to change the set out and do what we need to do and get. So that's my tip. But let's do some cold stuff, and then we've got a off the grid question too, Fee.
Oh, cool. Excellent. These are such good questions.
I was just going to say, yes, Alex is skiing in January and said how to deal with the pumps in the extreme cold. And someone else talked about insulin in the cold. And they're newly diagnosed and on MDI.
Well, I think you better take me with you. That'd be so fun. Okay, so that's not practical, but let me share a story with you from a conference I went to. I'll never forget it. It was the International Diabetes Federation conference in Melbourne 11 years ago. And I went to this amazing talk from a climber that was preparing to climb all the highest mountains around the world. Anyway, his story goes that he shared what happened to him when he was going up the summit, and he was on a pump. He'd done months and months and months of training. Anyway, as he was summiting the summit, he actually started to feel really unwell, really, really unwell. And what long of the short of it is he had DKA, because what happened is the tubing of the pump was out of his clothes and froze. All right. And he developed diabetic ketoacidosis. And I've taken that with me for the last 11 years. And I think it is so, even myself, when I was in Lake Tahoe a few years ago at the snow, it's so easy for your tubing on a pump to secretly slip out of your pocket or to just be exposed. And where they think he actually went wrong is that he had a hypo and he took his pump out. And because his reflexes weren't so good when he was low, it was a longer amount of time that it was out there. So tip for that is make sure when the kids are skiing and things like that, if they're on the insulin pump, that their tubing is right out of the way. So it's not it's on their body skin, and it's not, the tubing is not going to come out. If their glucose level's above 15, check the ketones, because your biggest way of knowing if you have an issue with the infusion set or the insulin is actually by checking if you've got ketones. If you don't have ketones, you can go, all right, maybe we overestimated the carbs, and keep a really close eye. Anything to do with the snow. The biggest one is that, firstly, you can have so much fun at the snow. It's the best thing with diabetes. First thing is blood glucose meters, insulin, keep on body temp. So even if I don't know that you'll be intense, but if you are intense, that the, what do you call it, blood glucose meter, that actually goes into your sleeping bag. Insulin, people keep in their sleeping bag as well. So with temperature as well. Really, really important. Your meter and everything, it will get cold. So that's why it's very important that you just keep it in sleeping bags. And I've had a lot of kids over the years that have traveled to the snow and have gone on, what do you call it, cross country and things like that as well. We
I was
ski.
just going to say, Fee, I think the other thing about your ski outfits, so the best thing about all our big jackets and parkas and pants is that they have a million different pockets, and they have lots of hidden inside pockets, and they have all these sorts of places where you can stock up your hypo kits. So
Amazing.
my son loves to ski. He wants to go back again, even though he broke his ankle last year skiing on his first ski trip by himself. But, you know, we have lots of pockets. So we'd have snakes in them. And then whoever he's skiing with will also have stashes. So we'd spread around the hypo kits. And we remember one of the first times we went skiing and the meters wouldn't work because it was too cold. You got the meter out and it was too cold. We don't have that as much now because he's got his CGM and so we don't carry it with us all the time. We have it back. But
Well,
19, it's a bit trickier now. But we always have all of this stuff with us. You know, we try and keep everything with us. And it is, you get that body heat, that warmth from keeping everything inside and keeping it all tucked away. It's just the benefit of all the extra pockets. There's lots of good hiding places for
and
type
put them
1
in your
kits and stuff.
insulin
So
and all that.
that would be one of my tips.
Put them in the internal pockets, not the external.
Yep. Yeah, all the, because there's lots of little ones inside that you can use that keeps it right on close to you, so you don't sort of get affected by the heat. And
Absolutely.
plenty of
Sorry, I've got a
pipe.
little person getting the puppy to go to the toilet. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Now, can I say the other really big thing with skiing, and it's so important that you speak to your team. The amount of energy that is used when skiing is absolutely incredible, and you will need massive, massive reductions in insulin and told how much carbohydrate and things like that to do. So please, those going to Lapland and going skiing, definitely speak to your team about it, because the insulin reduction needs to be quite significant, as well as additional carbohydrate as well.
Okay, we know that the weather can impact your levels regardless of activity too, right? So we know that you can go high when it's warmer, and similar, like I guess it's a bit individual in terms of, but do you find it when people, like we have that body change as well in the colder temperatures?
What we find in the summer, that kids either go high, and that tends to be because of the heat, insulin not working, but we find a lot anecdotally go low in the summer. Not necessarily because of the water and things like that, but we do hear that on really hot days, especially kids at school, they tend to go low. No research actually into that actual fact. Skiing, just because of the sheer energy, Mel, the absolute energy. If the kids are on
I was thinking about just the cold weather, regardless of if you know, may not be skiing and it's just really cold. Is there as much of an impact, or it's more the hot? Yeah. And I think that's the really interesting thing, or the interesting or frustrating, it's probably a better word, about diabetes, is that there's no real hard and fast rule about what can happen. So sometimes you can go really high when the weather's changes, or sometimes, like you're saying, V, you can go low. We can do the same thing 2 days in a row and get different results. So, you know, while there are these guidelines that we follow, everybody's going to react differently, and there's all sorts of different things that are tricky to control and tricky to manage. So it's about working out what you can do and setting up as much as you can and planning.
And just remember with the snow and all of those, that if you've got high blood sugar, the insulin could be affected. So once again, if you're in doubt, take out the insulin. Doesn't matter if it's hot weather or if it's a really cold weather, it can be either. Interesting thing, when I was in Tahoe a few years ago, I didn't realize that the porch where my uncle lived he was about half an hour from Tahoe, got really cold, and I left my day bag outside, and when I got up in the morning, my sensor was frozen and my insulin was frozen. Yeah, really surprised. It was quite warm during the day and it was so cold at night. Yeah,
any other questions about the colder weather stuff? Does that answer? I know that we were talking about pumps a bit, but for MDI, I guess, as Free was saying, you talk to your team about reducing insulin and things like that for extra exercise and that sort of stuff. But does everybody those questions answered for that before we?
Just one thing about the testing strips. We were out in the cold the other night, and we kept getting error messages on the sensor. And it was actually my son said to me, "Mum, you know, you just got to warm that up in your gloves and that'll work better. And it did. So I
And it
don't know
did.
if that was just a coincidence or whether that is something that is actually tried and true.
Absolutely. You say warming them up with your gloves?
The meter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I used
And
to live in
keeping your
Ballarat.
fingers warm too. Your fingers, you're doing finger pricks. Keeping fingers warm because they don't bleed very well when they're cold. Sorry, Figo.
No, I was saying when I lived in Ballarat, my meter would always, you know, go, and I would just warm it up in my gloves as well. I love this. This is riding on insulin, tips for skiing and snowboarding with type 1. And it's got some really cool tips. And testing at the bottom of the chairlift before getting on. CGM's a wonderful thing for watching trends while riding. Keep your equipment from freezing. Keep your tube tucked in. So I find that absolutely amazing, and that's from
Okay,
Beyond
cool.
Type 1.
So we had the question about, I think it was Kat, who is going camping and is worried about being off grid, and how can they monitor levels without hovering?
Hi, I'm Kat. I can give you a bit of context while you're sorting that
Yes,
out.
thanks, Kat.
Where we go camping, there's absolutely no phone or internet reception, nothing like that. So obviously, while my son's CGM will be talking to his device, it's about, obviously, that then won't be transmitting to me, so I won't be able to check. Obviously, being camping, right in the bush, we're right on a river. It's very, 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 very physical week. Obviously, I've spoken to the team about reducing back all the insulin, way more snacks, upping carbs, all that sort of stuff. But I guess he's used to having the freedom while we're there to go off and ride his bike, float down the river on a lilo, all that sort of stuff. How do I manage all of that while not having any kind of visual awareness of where he's at? And he's still only 7.
I was going to ask, that was going to be my question is how old was he?
Yeah, he's still only 7, so he does still need quite a lot of support and still quite newly diagnosed, only diagnosed earlier this year as well.
This is where diabetes sucks. Do you know what I mean? That's, to be absolutely honest, this is where it sucks. So this is where it's so tough, and we have a very similar thing when kids go on camp. Kat, it is really tough. So your two options are, one is that you are the accompanying adult that's with him. But the other thing is it might be a really great opportunity to actually share the load with somebody else. And where I say that is that, you know, these pouches that you can, that are waterproof that you can take in the water. Oh my God, so good. So you can have the phone in a waterproof pouch that the adult can have that's near him. I find that quite incredible. And within that 6 meters, the other thing is that you can get these ones, they're off Amazon, I think I picked mine up. It's actually a bum bag, right? That's waterproof. So super cool. So the actual adult that's with him could actually have a finger pricker and everything there if need be. They're the best tips as far as you can't follow when you have no, unfortunately, it doesn't work with Bluetooth. You need really good Wi-Fi. And being off the grid, I've tried so many times with different families. And I remember one family that one of the kids was on camp. The dad had the connection for ages and they thought they were one. At midnight, the blood sugar dropped to 1.1. Signal loss went. The poor father drove for 5 hours, drove for hours and hours to get there. The kid was absolutely fine, sound asleep. Dad was wrecked. So it's either, probably the two options are, one is be with him, and the other one is actually use it as a time to skill up one of the other adults that is with him. But this is where, no matter what their age, kids with type 1 have this, I just think they're the most incredible humans. And one of the amazing things I get to do every year with Mel and Mel is we go to the JDRF summit. And I help out in the kids' room or run the kids' room. And I have these really incredible conversations. And one of the things I find is that these kids are really good at listening. Okay, they're still kids. They can still be cheeky. They can still do all those things. But when you have that honest conversation and say why you have to do something, they actually take it on board. But when we say that, we also need to, you know, say, hey, you know what, this sucks, but this is what we got to do to keep you safe.
I was going to say we've done other camping trips since his diagnosis, but they haven't been quite as remote. And we've just done when he's gone off bike riding, mountain biking, whatever, around the site. It's always you do one lap, you come back and check in, and that seems to have worked really well. He's good. He's on it, like you said. He's a great listener. Yeah, it's just more at least I can still be watching him and being like, oh, yeah, no, he's going all right. He should come back and have a snack. I'm expecting him back in about 5 minutes. But when there's the no coverage part, I don't want to just be helicoptering on him the whole time.
I want to be a little old school and say, what did we do before CGMs? And I know that's not a reality
That's true.
For you because he's newly diagnosed. But there's part of me that sometimes feels very lucky that my son was diagnosed pre-CGM, because I feel like I have this bank of evidence in my brain that I actually know he's okay. As long as he's coming back and checking, I know there's, actually, generally he's okay for those couple of hours or that hour or so that he's doing that. We can sort of keep an eye on things and track. But I think it can be really difficult when we have access to all this technology all the time. We see it all the time, how to trust that things are okay, and that these amazing pumps and systems that we have nowadays that actually do an amazing job at looking after them without us there, do it without us having to monitor constantly and engage with them constantly. I think it's a really tricky thing.
He's very anti-pump for extra.
Oh, he's not on pump?
Extremely anti-pump. We're working on it. We're having chats, we're having conversations. So yeah, there's just that added, and he's got very volatile levels. And that's just been him for the last 6 months. We cannot get him leveled out. So he might be totally fine 1 second and 3 minutes later is having a hypo, and you're like, where did that come from?
It's scary. It is scary. It is scary, and it's a learning thing. Type 1's a learning thing. So you do things, and you try it out and you see what happens, and we react and we respond and we change. We move with it. We have to be able to be really flexible when it comes to our expectations, I guess, when it comes to diabetes and what it's going to do and what we're able to do. I always want to go back to kids first, diabetes second, and also for you, Mum, to not have to feel like you're constantly having to think about it as well, because it'd be nice for you to have a relax when you're at camp too. That would be really nice. So
something that I remember my dad did with me, and this is going back, we're talking decades now, but I don't think it's I think it was quite ingenious. It used to make me up snap. So we didn't have CGM in the dinosaur age, okay? But my dad used to make me up little snack bags. And so when I would be doing laps around the Port Arlington Caravan Park and things like that I knew that each lap I had to then have some snacks, and he had it labeled, and that works really, really well. And the other one is just having like a little bum bag, or even going to Spotlight and getting some the fabric glue and gluing an extra little pocket on the shirt or in the socks, and you can put a few lolly snakes in there. So
yeah, he carries around a little mini hypo kit. He's got like a little bag that he uses to carry all of his bits and pieces. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just about remembering, trust him. He knows his body as well. He's really good at identifying when he's starting to feel like he's dropping down.
I feel like if he's always with an adult and they'll hear the beeps, or they might look at the phone, then you can, like Fee was saying, train up your village. I think is one of the best things you can do if you can do that. I think I promise you it is one of the best things that you can do long term, is have a village, because then you get a break and other people, and it's nothing better than having family and friends that are willing to look after. It's a really nice feeling, that are able to and willing and engaged. Nice for the kids too. Now, yes, Mel, I know we have a food question.
Yes. I was getting ready for that one. Yes.
Yep,
sorry.
I can see you turn your...
Thank you, Kat, for your question.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yes, Justina said we're newly diagnosed and pump is they're getting a pump in January. Right now we have 5 gram snacks in between main meals. Is it okay to have more carbs for a snack and just dose for it, like possibly a normal ice cream or whatever they would like? We're currently using My Life app to work out dosages.
Okay, so I have to be
I'm going to do ask your team.
Yeah, I have to do, you need to speak to your team on that. And I know that it sounds like I am handballing. It's just that every team has something very different, okay? So what I would be suggesting you do is that you say to your team, we are going, it's Christmas holidays. Our family, we have lots of foods and celebrations, that we're going to probably need to eat more than 5 gram snacks. Can I do this? Or what way can you help me work out how to do this? And that's how I would say, we need to do this as a family. Can you please help me? It's not every day, But you know what? In this festive period, I need it. Can you please help me? Not can I, but can you please help me do it?
'Cause we want diabetes to fit into your day.
Yeah.
We want it to be that, not, we don't want, especially at these fun times, we don't want to have to restrict and do that because of diabetes. We want to work out a way for diabetes to work around it. We've got some other food questions for you.
Can
for
I just say
Christmas.
with that, remember Christmas though, I know that, and I'm just looking down at my son and the puppy down there as well, but it's really important that when Santa comes in our house, I know all of a sudden we are burning on the scooter, the bike, the trampoline. I know even like with the puppy, we'll be running around chasing a puppy, that you have to be very mindful at Christmas. And once again, chat to your team that where you think that you need always to have insulin over a certain amount, it actually might be activity food. So just remember that. Christmas morning is Christmas Day in a lot of families is high impact, high intensity, and amazing, fun time.
We have some newly diagnosed families that have very similar questions, just being worried about Christmas, dealing with all the Christmas breakfast and lunch and dinner and the snacks and the treats.
And the candy canes they get out of school and all that sort of stuff. And how do we?
Can they have the candy cane at school? And they don't want them to feel excluded at school or at home. So what is your advice there, Fee?
The short answer is we want Christmas to be much more important and what we remember rather than diabetes.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's not about time in range on that day. You want to prevent the lows because who wants lots of lows? And you want to prevent the highs because you don't want to be weeing all day and having some accidents. But otherwise, Christmas, Easter and birthdays, they're about the celebration. They're about sharing the Christmas spirit. And it's not a time to be fearful. Okay. And
they're a way that we can learn. We can go, we tried this out. That worked. Oh, look, this is how we react to this. That was interesting. What I want is that kind of language. If people are thinking about how the diabetes went on the Christmas day, it's kind of like, we tried that. That may not work. Maybe next time we can try this. That's a much better way to think about it rather than, oh no, it was terrible. We had hypoed all day. If they hypoed all day or they were high all day, it was like, we'll just work out what we do next time. Sorry, if there's a question about the lollies and things, the gifts that people give out.
Do you want me to stop sharing? So go again. Sorry, say again.
There's just a couple of questions. I don't know if we've answered the one about the snacks, because you know how at school they give out Christmas cards and often, I don't know if they still do it, give Christmas cards with like candy canes and things on them.
Yeah.
What's the rule of thumb? I know what I would say, but I'm going to go
Look, some families, the schools, talk to the kids and say all the kids are going to have an icy pole on this Friday for Christmas, or they're all going to have 2 candy canes and they can arrange to dose or the snacks. If it's just a candy cane, some families might go, have the candy cane, we'll correct later. And that is like a personal thing and your team can help you. I think what's really, really important is that we just can't say one way of doing things because you have to think a lot of the time at school when they're doing this, the kids are then running around the oval 10 times as well. So in actual fact, it might be an activity snack because there's not many teachers that are crazy enough to give their kids, pump them full of sugar and let them stay in the classroom. Generally, it's
I remember when Will was at school, if they got them at the end of the day, they made them give them out at the end of the day. They could take them home and then you can deal with them as the parents can work it out and stockpile them, or they, have one on their way home, or they do, there's lots of ways that you can do it so they don't miss out. The last thing I'd want is everybody else to get a candy cane and your child not, because that just sucks. And that's just going to give them a reason to hate diabetes. And we don't really want anybody sitting in that headspace.
Mel, I was going to say my family, we don't have type 1, we have anaphylaxis and we have a trade deal. So how the trade works is he accepts everything, no matter what it is. And then when he comes home, we trade it out. So I often have non-food stuff and I have food stuff. Sometimes he'll choose the food stuff, sometimes he won't. But we have this trade deal that we trade out.
And I would like to check myself a little bit and say, so for my other child that doesn't have diabetes, what would I be letting them eat as well? Like I think we often place it all about diabetes and same, I always think of Easter and things, and Halloween, I don't want my other child who doesn't happen to have diabetes to eat everything all in one sitting either, because they're just going to feel crap and awful, and it's not very healthy for anybody to do that. So I often try to check that thinking and make sure I'm not making everything about diabetes and actually trust what I would do as a parent anyway. So sort of come back to that. I think we can doing that can be really helpful in these situations as well.
I'm a bit of a Google, and one of my favorite things to Google as a person living with diabetes is Beyond Type 1. Yeah, okay, the American slant, but they've got it, and
They've got good stuff, yeah.
interview people from around the world, and I love this one. Celebrations, holidays. There's one here, the 5 most common party foods and what it means for sugars, if you want to look at that. But I love this. We've got older kids, alcohol and diabetes. Love this one. Surviving the holidays, parenting guide for T1D, navigating your first holiday season. You know what? It's really funny. I had a look at their carb counting one time, and you know, it does, they use a little bit different language, even in the US, but you can adapt that for us. Then, you know, it might not be Christmas. And for so some people it's Hanukkah, some people it's more New Year's, some people it is what else do we have around that? Chinese New Year. You know, it's all very different. But can I say I totally love it.
I
Totally
always
added
used to
it.
think back, and I think
Yeah.
it's for those that are still newly diagnosed, sorry, Mel, for those newly diagnosed and on MDI,
Yeah.
one of the things I used to hate, one of that used to really stress me out, was when my children slept in and I wanted to let them sleep in on the holidays, and I do not, as much as you said, keep to routine, not want to get my child up early in the school holidays when they're having a nice sleep in to give injections. How do we work around that fee? What do
Oh,
we-
mate. That
Yes,
is, to
Melanie.
me, that is routine though. That's school holiday routine.
Yeah, so it's just your routine changes, right? Like you,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the big thing to remember is depending on what insulin you're on, you might be on Levemir, you might be on Opticelin. Opticelin is once a day. If your insulin and your child has Opticelin every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, well, you know what? They have to get up at that time. So that's when you chat to your team and say, hey, we're going to have the best Christmas, crazy nights, sleep-ins. They'll help you change the time of your insulin. That's why a lot of services actually have Opticelin at night. So that's like they might be having their Opticelin at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So therefore the kids can sleep in as long as they need to. Because what we have to remember, unless you're on mixed insulin, like twice daily injections, which some of you may be, but probably the majority will be on 4 injections a day. If you're having Nova Rapid for your food, and that's what you're having it for, just the food and nothing else, then it doesn't matter if you have breakfast at a different time. And that's mainly with flexible insulin delivery. And if that's something you would like to do, is have that flexibility, chat to your team about it. But those kids that are on 4 injections a day, depending on what their team have devised, they can sleep in as long as they have that Opticelin. That's what keeps you safe.
it was one of my pet peeves, and I was like, this is garbage. But there are ways.
I do crack it though with my boys that tell me that they're sleeping until 2 o'clock. I say no human should sleep into 2 o'clock. Please get up at least at 1:50.
Teenagers do. They sleep all day. Their brains
I
change.
said
But yes,
1:50.
yeah, 150 will do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when we just go in and poke them. So we can share all of these resources that Fee's been sharing, and any other ones. We've got some other link though. Fee's sharing again. What are you sharing us now?
I love this travel and type 1 diabetes, just my fave.
Yep.
There's a great one with JDRF as well, but I love the checklists in here. A really good checklist. Yeah. Travel is one of my favorite things, as you know, Mels.
Yeah, there's heaps of resources around, and I think sometimes it can be really overwhelming for people to try and to gather all of the information. But I think, you know, use your Facebook groups, use JDRF websites and other, you know, use those places because that's good. It's good, solid advice. But yes, talk to your team. They're actually really useful. Can we go through the airport body scan with the CGM?
Yeah, fantastic. So CGM, you can go through the scanner. They suggest not the 360 with insulin pumps, but most important thing that's come out in the last 12 months is that your sensors cannot go through the scanners. So you need to have them separate that go through. So the sensors transmitters need to go with you as you're going through, and you just hand them over, but not to go in the luggage scanner is the biggest change in the last 2 years. Yeah.
And you can opt to not go through the scanners fee, right? You can actually ask them to
For a pat down.
get a pat down.
I may just have a really good bag. I'll show everybody. Hold on.
While Fee's doing that, I will mention that I don't know if anyone's heard about the sunflower lanyards. If you're going to an airport, you can go and get this sunflower lanyard that basically says you need a little bit extra time and maybe a little bit more attention. And the staff should know to kind of keep an eye out for you and help you in whatever way you need.
Mel, on that, if we've got anybody going to America, TSA Cares, unbelievable. Oh my God. You sign up for it, then they contact you. We got a phone call in Disneyland to say, can you please reach out to us, and they take you through. This is my little travel kit.
Yep.
Okay, so if you
On the
imagine
top
that's
feed. Yep.
my hand, that's
Yep.
right. It's clear. It is a whole $8 at Kmart or Target. You can get a number of sensors in there. I just hand it over and here you go. And that was amazing. And you can get bigger ones as well. But if you're going for longer, to get the bigger version, I think that's $12. Smaller version, domestic, absolute treat.
Sophie, can I ask I'm not, no, there are no dumb questions, but a sensor's not allowed to go in your luggage that gets checked?
That's exactly right.
So no.
No, not anymore.
Best we change our practice in our house.
Yeah, I know. It's a big thing that's happened recently.
So what if you have a whole pile of them? Do we get?
No, then you get a bigger one of these, Mel.
Okay.
You don't have to get this one. I personally like it. Not lots of sturdiness. It's clear. So if I accidentally put a Diet Coke in there, I'll see it before they get in trouble in America. But yeah, Kmart, amazing, and Target, amazing. The Anko brand, some great
Good
stuff.
stuff. Yeah. And nice and affordable too, huh?
And now the CGM, all your CGM companies, all your pump companies will tell you what to do with aircrafts and things like that as well. So yell out. I just saw about the little bag for the bikes as well.
For the bike, isn't it? Yeah.
Aldi. You can get them at Aldi when they have their sales as well. Absolutely brilliant.
Sorry, Figo.
Okay, yeah.
So I just read one about, can we inject Novorapid and insulin at the same time? Yes, you can, but not in the same site. So if you were giving it on the left side of the tummy, that wouldn't work. And the reason is that opticillin, sorry, that's my son. He should have been in bed an hour ago. You can tell he's taking advantage of the webinar and a puppy. The opticillin, if you think of it like a bubble, if you have the Novorapid nearby, it breaks that 24-hour ability. So yes, you can have it at the same time, but one might be in the leg, one might be at the tummy, one might be in the left side, one might be in the right side.
Cool.
Can I just say a big thank you to JDRF for having me, as always. Do love hanging out with you guys. But to each and every one of you, thank you. Thank you for your amazing questions. You know, we had these things that we were going to do. You guys have run the whole show. We greatly appreciate it. We're appreciating your questions. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And from one T1 family to all of you guys, T1 families, we wish you the merriest Christmas. Please enjoy, and remember, Christmas is all about that spirit. It's all about having fun. And you know what? Avoid the lows, avoid the highs, and know that you're not alone in this journey. And Merry Christmas, everybody. And Happy Hanukkah and everything else that we have going on at the same time.